Alright, people, review of the week time. So, a lot to talk about over the last couple of days, especially the cards that were on over the course of the weekend. As we normally do, we review the fights that happen over the weekend. We normally tend to start with the lesser cards. No disrespect, but they are lesser cards than what we had last night. So, on Friday on Channel 5, we had Lyndon Arthur, and this was a really interesting little card. The two main fights I want to talk about are Samuel Antwi. He fought Mason Cartwright. Now, Mason Cartwright fought, God almighty, who was it? Was it Troy Williamson? About a year or so ago. I think it was on a Pro Bellum show. It was one of the first Pro Bellum shows. And many people believe she got hard done by. I think that was for the British title, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure it was as well. And in this fight here, he went in, and boy was he laid out. It was a great shot from Samuel Antwi. It was a left hook. And it was one of those shots where Mason Cartwright was actually knocked out. Pretty sure it was a left hook anyway that he kind of leaned into. Mason Cartwright was actually out cold before he hit the ground. So he took some extra shots before, because the referee was a bit late getting in there to stop it. But devastating KO. And Lyndon Arthur fought Brianna Suarez, I believe is how you pronounce the name, an Argentinian, I believe he is. Fighter, light heavyweight. This was for the IBO in all of its glory. Light heavyweight world light heavyweight title. We're not going to chuck the word world in there. Very tough fight for Lyndon Arthur. He was nearly stopped in the 5th round. He was down in the 4th round. Really was not looking good at all in this fight. He really wasn't. This guy Suarez, he's an unheralded, it's fair to say, Argentinian. He was stopped by Albert Ramirez last year, June of last year, in the 1st round. I'll have you know, in the very first round. As this guy is a Venezuelan. That's definitely a Venezuelan flag anyway. So, not going in with any real, there was nothing really there to indicate this would be a tough fight, but it was. And Lyndon Arthur won with a body shot in the 10th round. Boy, was he lucky, because he was well on course to losing this fight, and he was lucky. Like, he really could have got stopped in here. So, Lyndon Arthur, I mean, he's IBO champion for whatever that's worth, but, we're getting ready for Dan Aziz in the next month. Dan Aziz versus Anthony Boazzi. Or Joshua Boazzi. And, that fight is pitching arguably the two best 175 pounders in the country. Anthony Yard may have something to say about that, but Lyndon Arthur is miles off them. Like, he may have an IBO title for whatever that's worth, but he is miles off those three guys. He's already lost to Anthony Yard. I know he beat Yard, but he was fairly dealt with in the rematch pretty big time. So Lyndon Arthur in that fight there, he really did struggle. He really truly did. In terms of the Sky card that was on, we'll obviously go through the undercard. I only got a chance to review one of the fights on the undercard, and obviously we did a watch along for the remainder. So Florian Marku defeated Dylan Moran, first round stoppage, it's fair to say. And again, I said in the post-fight review that I got the fight I pretty much expected. I wasn't expecting much from Dylan Moran. He can box a little bit, but he's shown questionable punch resistance, it's fair to say. The minute that Marku landed a right hand, he was able to time a right hand. He landed it on Dylan Moran. Moran was hurt, backed up again the ropes by Florian Marku, and he was able to finish the job there. Referee jumped in and stopped it. The fight I expected, it was a 54-second knockout. It's Florian Marku's first fight in about a year. And I think he's needed maybe the break he's needed to get his head back in the game, because some of his fights he was really switching off. He was really, really switching off and making harder work of fights than he should. Really, he was making much harder work of fights than he should. Good performance from Florian Marku. Adam Mazim got the win over Arman Fayan. It was not a... Look, on the scorecards, Adam Mazim, it says he won it clearly. I mean, one judge gave Adam Mazim every round. I don't agree with that. I think that Fayan won probably at least 2 rounds, maybe even 3 rounds. Adam Mazim was getting countered a good bit in there. He was the faster of the two, the more athletic. But it wasn't a performance that's going to make you stop and think, oh wow, Adam Mazim looks tremendous. He didn't look amazing in there, it's fair to say. So Adam Mazim, there's going to be, they need to pull the brakes on him, because at one stage they were talking seriously about having him, headline and pay-per-views and stuff like that. No, he's a good year, 18 months off that. I don't care how athletic he is. You step this guy up too soon, he's going to get hurt. Seriously, he needs a lot of work as Adam Mazim. He's a good fighter and there's a lot of potential there, but he needs to be brought the right way. He really does. He really truly does. In terms of the other fights on the undercard, I have to say I got this one wrong. Mark Heffron versus Jack Cullen. I fancied Mark Heffron in this fight. I'm not going to lie. He was looking a lot better in his last couple of performances. He's been doing quite well. Jack Cullen, obviously he lost to Felix Cash. He lost in a European title fight against Kevin Lee Sajigo, I think is how you say that. And obviously he fought Diego Pacheco. I think it's how you pronounce that name. He is brilliant. He's absolutely phenomenal. So I'm not surprised he beat Jack Cullen. And I thought, given the fact that he's lost all these fights, there've been 4 stoppage losses, bit of wear and tear, he'll go in there against Heffron and he'll be game, but he won't. Heffron will be just too fresh. Boy, was I wrong. Cullen won, stoppage in the 3rd round, lovely left hook. Mark Heffron went down heavy. He got back up to his feet. I don't know would the referee have called it then and there if Heffron's legs hadn't betrayed him, but his legs betrayed him. He couldn't stand, so the referee quite rightly called it off. I mean, I think it's pretty much an unwritten rule, or maybe it is a rule, that if a fighter falls down off one punch twice, it's an automatic stoppage, because it obviously shows their legs are not there. So there's no point keeping it going, because he's just going to end up getting absolutely knocked out cold if he carries on. That was I wasn't expecting it now, I have to say, but Jack Cullen turned up well, and he got the win. Fair play. He is now British and Commonwealth champion at 168 pounds. Let's see what he does next. The last fight before the main event, obviously this wasn't in sequential order in terms of the running of the card. This is just the order, I'm just reading them in. Fraser Clarke fought Dave Allen. I got the fight I expected. Dave Allen turned up. He was 257 pounds, about 20 pounds heavier than he should be. Didn't look in shape, barely threw any punches, and he looked just as I expected. Dave Allen, once again, the build to this fight has been saying that he's training harder, etc., 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 etc. We've heard it all before. It's still the same old Dave Allen. You might say that's harsh, but he's been given so many opportunities in the past. He's not turned up in shape. He's not trained properly. He's squandered a lot of opportunities. And, Dave Allen is not the most talented boxer. That's fair to say. He's not. But if you look at him early on, there was a little bit of something there. And whatever little bit of talent he had, he squandered it. He's taken fights on short notice. He's come in way out of shape in the past. I think it was against Lenroy Thomas in Sheffield way back when. He was like 230 something. Within 2 months he was already in the 270s, taking short notice fights against Tony Yoka. And yeah, Tony Yoka mistreated drugged. I can't say he was, we know. But, taking these short notice gigs, not turning up in shape, you're not doing yourself any favours. And, to be given these opportunities is phenomenal. You have to take the bull by the horn. You have to take them. That's like turning around and saying, right, imagine me, right? Imagine TNT Sports said, right, we want you to come and we want you to interview a couple of fighters, right? And me just turning up, not doing any research on the fighters, not having any questions prepared, and just turning up, not having a clue what to ask them, and then wondering why I'm not invited back. You're given opportunities. You got to turn up in shape. As for Fraser Clarke, I mean, he was bang average. He really was. There was nothing. He was hitting Dave Allen low. Yes, Dave Allen's guard was up high, but those shots were low. And Fraser Clarke is bang average, and I think he knows himself. You never hear him speak in terms of like world honours or anything like that. I think he knows domestic European level is kind of where he is at. Because I wasn't impressed, even after all that. I would say if Fabio Wadley or David Adelaide was in there with Dave Allen, they would have really pushed the action, tried to actually get him proper put a hurting on. Fraser Clarke just went through the motions, wasn't impressed with either man, certainly not. That was that, and then we get into the main event. Obviously, Eubank Jr. avenging the loss, stopping Liam Smith in the 10th round. Dominant display from Chris Eubank Jr. Very impressed with what I've seen. Again, I cannot speak more highly of Chris Eubank Jr. based upon that performance. I really thought it was absolutely phenomenal. He really impressed me, not just in terms of his technical boxing in there, which was very good, but in terms of his mentality. Absolutely incredible mentality to go in there with. It showed a lot of mental strength, and as I said in a video I did, and I'll talk about Conor Benn now in a wee bit, but as I said in the video I done, for him to be stopped the way he was, his legs completely go, and go in there knowing that what you've said over the years about having this iron chin, that view was shattered. To go in there against the guy who did all that and to not even show a hint of being gun shy, phenomenal. Really was, from a guy who was freezing against the likes of George Groves and the likes of Billy Joe Saunders back in the day. For me, he showed great mental fortitude in there. He really did. And that, to me, is almost just as impressive, if not more, than the performance, which was absolutely fantastic. Liam Smith said he had to cut 42 pounds. That shouldn't be happening, though. You shouldn't be coming in that overweight. You really shouldn't. So that's what I got to say there. In terms of Conor Benn, right? Eddie Hearn tweeted that. Conor Benn said that he wasn't impressed. I don't know how he couldn't be, because that was a very impressive performance. Not like Conor Benn's ever done anything in the sport. A lot of Chris Eubank post-fight said that the fights he's looking at are Kell Brook, Conor Benn, Gennady Golovkin. That's what he's been talking about. So that's kind of what he's been saying about the road he wants to go down. He's not mentioned world titles. If he decides to go for the world title, happy days. I think that he should at least try and target a world title at this point in his career. But he's obviously looking for the big money fights. Conor Benn, I'm speaking of this from a hypothetical scenario. If he's cleared by UCAD and the British Boxing Board of Control, if we don't know what they could come back with, they could say, they obviously are disputing that, the suspension, and it could emerge that they legit have grounds and Conor Benn could end up getting banned. If that's the case, well, then you can say goodbye to Conor Benn versus Chris Eubank. It ain't going to happen, right? I'm just saying, if he is cleared, at the end of the day, right, Conor Benn has a lot of explaining still to do. If you're cleared on a technicality, understandably, fans are going to have questions. They're going to be upset. They're going to be saying, hang on a minute, right? At the end of the day, that stuff's in your system. You've not been able to explain why that's in your system, regardless of all these dossiers, etc. Why is that in your system? Never mind saying, well, I'm getting off. How are you getting off on a technicality? That's not good enough, right? So I understand where people are coming from with that. I'm saying, if it is a case of that they do clear him, what can you do? There's no use just digging your heels in and saying, they're not going to turn around and play holier than thou and say, oh, well, because the fans don't like it, they're not going to do that. Eubank or Eddie Hearn, Conor Benn, etc. They're going to try and make money. That's what they're going to do. So I'm looking at that and just saying, okay, they're obviously going to try and make it. If they did make it, would I be interested in it? I'm not going to lie, I would. I'd watch it. Likewise, I would watch Chris Eubank Jr. versus Triple G. I would, even though I don't think it's a good fight at this stage, I would still watch him versus Kell Brook. I'd watch them. And they'd be on Sky, more than likely. So that's what I got to say on that. With the Conor Benn situation, he's been talking about coming back in Florida on the 23rd. Will he, won't he? I mean, is that just a bit of, wishful thinking? I don't know. I mean, obviously in LA, they said they wouldn't be giving him a license. In Nevada, they said they wouldn't. Is Florida a little bit more lax when it comes to that? Potentially. Could be. We don't know. In terms of the situation, we need to see what happens with UCAD. At the end of the day, if they ban Conor Benn, they ban him. At the end of the day, that is what that is. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. That's the way it is. If they ban him, if he gets banned, he should serve his ban. Don't look for technicalities. Don't look for ways to circumvent it. If you get banned, you get banned. At the end of the day, that stuff's in your system. Why is it in your system? It's like people who, when Elisa Baumgardner was failing the test, instantly like, oh no, it's wrong. It's like, well, why is she failing? If you are failing these tests or having adverse analytical findings, there's something there. 9 times out of 10, unless, if you're looking at, obviously the example I gave was Ola Duradola and Marius Vac, that's a little bit more, we obviously know what happened there, but why is there stuff in your system? Why are you pinging? And why are you pinging multiple times? That's what I got to say on that. In terms of the middleweight division, well, Yalabek is set to go on October 14th. Keyshawn Davis is going to be on the undercard. And he will face, it will be a unification, so any chance of Eubank maybe potentially getting an easy touch for a title is gone. Janibek is potentially going to be unifying. And in terms of other titles, wait until you hear this. I mean, this really is a head scratcher right here. So obviously last weekend Daniel Dubois fought Alexander Usyk in a consolidation fight of sorts. He was mandatory for Alexander Usyk, but he brought to the table the WBA regular heavyweight title, and we were told that that's the end of the regular title at heavyweight. That lasted all of 1 week. So Manuel Char has now been reinstated as WBA regular heavyweight champion. He won that title in 2017, a vacant title against Alexander Ustinov, I should say, and he never made a defence of it. He fought Christopher Lovejoy, but that was, I think, an 8 or 10 rounder in 2021. He's not done anything, well, I don't think he's done anything of note since then. So he's now been reinstated as regular champion. He has now been ordered to defend his titles against Jarrell Big Farmer Miller next. Because why? Like, Jarrell Miller has earned well, it's not really a world title, but he's earned a crack at a regular title. Unbelievable. Apparently the winner is going to get mandated to fight for the full title. I mean, seriously, this WBA, it's like the WBA and WBC are having a tug of war. Who can just make the most bizarre decisions? It's like it's like someone goes to the WBA. Well, did you hear what the WBC did? What did they do? They did this. That's completely ridiculous. We need to top them. How do we top them? I've got it. Get Jarrell Miller on the phone. That's literally what they're doing here. Unbelievable. Now, some people are going to be really peeved off that Jarrell Miller is fighting for a title. Can't believe I'm still just scratching my head about this. When I read it, I was just like, this cannot be right. It really genuinely can't be true. But unreal. The WBA regular title, honest to God, that whole thing is just one of the stupidest ideas. Just what is the point? Honestly, it's bizarre. But that is the situation there. Now, Errol Spence is reported to have now activated the rematch clause to fight Terence Crawford next. Bomac has confirmed that. Unconfirmed reports, I want to emphasize this, right? I have seen unconfirmed, unsubstantiated reports that Errol Spence has parted ways with Derek James. Again, nothing confirmed. I've seen a few people saying that's the rumour mill. I personally hope it's not true, because I think Derek James is a very good trainer. He's worked with Errol Spence pretty much as well. He's worked with Errol Spence his whole career. And I really don't like this whole notion nowadays where a fighter loses, blame the trainer and leave him. What, like, are we getting into a stage now where a fighter can't lose his own and a trainer can't have a fighter lose? Really? You do realise that I think Derek James won Trainer of the Year last year? And a difference a year makes. You're going to have years as a trainer where your fighters are going to take L's. It happens. You know, I hope to God that's not the case. In terms of Errol Spence taking the Crawford rematch, you know, it was such a one-sided fight first time around. I can't see it going any different, to be honest with you. I'd be surprised if it does. You never know. It might be Errol Spence might be more competitive, but he showed that Crawford is just the better fighter. He was just completely in control. There's no two ways around it. He was just completely in control with Terence Crawford. And I really don't see what Errol Spence can do different in the rematch. It depends what weight it's going to be at. Will it be at 147? Will they do it at 154? To be honest with you, either way, whether it be at 147 or 154, it's a similar result. I think Terence Crawford just has Errol Spence's number. I mean, that was a dominant performance by Terence Crawford in that fight. He was absolutely fantastic. I just don't see how Errol Spence can beat Terence Crawford. I really don't. You know, will we get an announcement soon? Will it happen this year? I don't think it will. I'd say it's probably going to be maybe February, March, maybe April next year when we get the rematch. What does that mean for Terence Crawford? Will he have to vacate his IBF title? Because obviously Boots Ennis is the mandatory. He's been longing for that title shot. Will they say because the rematch clause is there, they'll give them carte blanche if it's at 150 or 47 pounds, if it's at 154? What will happen there? I don't know. If Charlo was stripped of his titles, could they move to 154 and fight for a vacant title? Questions need to be asked there. I don't know. But look, Errol Spence, I would have preferred to see him retire personally. I think that was a really punishing fight, that Terence Crawford fight. It was a really, really punishing fight. I don't think he's going to get any better. In fact, I think he's probably going to get worse based upon what I saw there. So, look, that's what I'll watch it, certainly, but I think Errol Spence should be looking to go in a different direction, personally. The WBO have now officially requested Top Rank have now officially requested the WBO make Teofimo Lopez super champion at lightweight or super lightweight. This status would allow him to be more flexible with mandatories and mean he could become Terence Crawford's mandatory at WBO if he moves up. No. we don't need this suit. Just no. The WBA are a lot more sensible than the WBC and the WBA. So I'm hoping that they don't. I really do hope that they don't, under any circumstances, do that. I really do. I think that's absolutely ludicrous if they do that. I really, truly do. Good Lord, please don't let that happen. I've also seen in the last week, obviously, there's talk that Alexander Usyk is going to get ordered to face Filip Hrgovic. Eddie Hearn was talking about that happening last week. It hasn't happened as yet, but you just don't know. I couldn't really tell you what the hell is that. Oh, someone sent me a super thanks on one of the videos. Hey, look, I literally got notification that someone sent a super thanks on one of the videos, which is a function YouTube have. I appreciate that. That's never happened on a recording someone's left. That's a new one. I appreciate that very much, though, to the person who did leave the super thanks. I thank you for the super thanks. I really do. I appreciate it. But Eddie Hearn was saying that was going to happen last week. It hasn't happened yet, but the IBF are normally quite stringent and strict when it comes to mandatories. So I expect them to order Hrgovic at some point in the not too distant future. Will Hrgovic take step aside? We don't know. It all depends on what's going to happen. Like we're about 2 months away from Fury and Ngannou. I think more will be clear when that fight, in inverted commas, happens. What the next step for Usyk and both Fury will be. And Billy Joe Saunders has also talked that he is looking to plan his return to the ring. How successful that will be, I do not think it will be particularly successful, but you never know. Stranger things have happened. But with that fight, I just don't see it being... I don't see him having much success. You know, I really don't. I don't see him having a great deal of success with his comeback. He's been way out of shape over the last few years. And yeah, I think that is just going to be a comeback to top up the bank more so than anything else. I really do. I don't think... I think that's all it's really going to be. I'm just looking here and I'm not really seeing any other news really coming in. I think it's mainly been dominated by Fight Talk this last week, and hopefully now there'll be more news coming this week, because we've got no fights on the horizon, major fights on the horizon, until Joe Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang 2, and obviously Canelo the week after. So with a few small cards in between, though, to be fair. So we will hopefully get some news on coming up in the next week on certain things. The world of boxing is always bringing news. You know, the only quiet time is Christmas time, really, for the world of boxing. Other than that, it's 24/7, 365 for the most part. So I'll leave it there, lads. I hope you enjoyed the video. Smash the like button if you could. Going out on a Monday for a change. I hope everyone watching enjoys the video. I hope you all have a great week. I know myself, this week is going to be quite a busy week for me. I'm getting the wheels in motion for the move to London. We're getting into the start of it now. And in terms of things here, I am hoping that I get some news on certain things in Dublin, in Ireland this week. Good news. And I'm really hoping we get it. I think that we need it. Definitely, this last week has been a bit of a crappy week. So hopefully it gets better this week for everyone listening. Not just myself, for everyone listening. And everyone has a great week. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. I'll talk to you, lads. Peace.